I first heard about Folium at the convention, a health convention put on in Long Beach, I believe it was, a few years ago. The vice president of the Cancer Control Society, Frank Cousineau, an old, longtime friend of mine, came up to me and introduced me to a fellow by the name of Bob Ray Oren. He started telling me about a product called Folium, and that it was had a very interesting history, that it came from herbal sources, and that it had a unique and powerful capacity to remove radioactive substances from the human body. It was used in the aftermath of Chernobyl, and the effects on the people that took it was very favorable, and those who didn't take it, by comparison, had terrible health conditions. And so I said, well, how do I get to know more about it? And that's how it all began. And then after I got the literature and read it, it was very impressive. And fortunately, I think what put it over the edge for me is that part of the literature came from a rather small but significant study that was done by Dr. James Privatera, who is a medical doctor in the Covina area in Los Angeles. And I know Jim very well. He and I are friends many years. And I know he's a fine doctor, and I said, well, here's Privatera's research. So I read that very carefully, and what I saw there was very impressive, that a group of patients which had very high radioactive levels in their hair, analysis, and blood and so forth, were tested, and then they went on the Folium product, and then after a period of time they were tested again, and the levels had gone down substantially. So what more can I say? The environment keeps building up with pesticides, and it keeps building up with fertilizers. The air is polluted with exhaust from this, that, and the other thing. We've got nuclear reactors going off here, there, and everywhere, and the wind is blowing all of the fallout around, and you almost get to the point where you're numb to it. What are you going to do about it? The environment is loading up with all kinds of toxic chemicals and radiation. It's a result of industry. It's a result of bad practices in food production. It's a result of so many things. We get toxic chemicals added to our food in order to kill the bugs, so that the bugs don't eat the food. So the crops grow bigger and more profitable, and so we eat the crops that have some of the chemical on them that killed the bugs. Well, maybe it's having a similar effect on us too. I believe that the issue of heavy metals, which is in the same category really of radioactive materials, it's just not quite so high on the scale, they're very toxic to the human body as well. And we're getting heavy metals in our food too, and also from fallout and burning smoke and all that sort of thing. And those are lodging in our systems. We have all kinds of toxic things that are in that category, as I understand it, somewhere between mineral and metal. In almost every case, I believe the introduction of these heavy metals is part of the problem that the human race is facing right now. And the evidence is beginning to mount that some of these things are affecting the genetic pool, in other words, the DNA, which means that it doesn't just affect you or me, but it affects our children as well, and that these traits can be passed on hereditarily. And so once that happens, the human race is forever changed, forever. It can't go back. And that really worries me a lot. Based on what I know so far about Folium, I think it's an excellent product. We're just beginning now to see some of the research come in where we have controlled studies and we can follow patients from the beginning when they start to use it and when they end it. Aside from the study done by Dr. Privatera, I'm not aware of others, but I think that there are others being conducted. But the more we learn, the more encouraging it is. I think that the time is coming when we'll have maybe tens of thousands of case studies. And of course, at that point, all questions are absolutely removed. If you've got a serious case of radioactive poisoning, then you need to go get the big gun. And I think that's one of the reasons that the product, this Folium product, is so interesting to me.